Welcome to our next class. In this class, we will look at the skeleton plane, which is element number 4 in our text. Alright, so to review, we have looked at the strategy plane, where we established our goals, objectives, and determined our users. The scope plane, where we start gathering the content, determining what type of content we need, and what other types of functional specifications our product may need. At the structure plane, we start organizing our content, and we start understanding the relationship between the different types of content that we have and the flow or interactivity of the functionality that we may have. Now at the skeleton plane, we actually start working on what the product is going to look like. This is where we start making the structure a little bit more concrete by using wireframes as placeholders to show where the content will be located and how the content will be interrelated. So the skeleton plane refines the structure plane a little bit more. Here's where the form or shape starts happening for our product. We start identifying the different aspects of the interface with respect to the content and functional design, and this is where we start looking at navigation if that applies to your product. And we will talk more about navigation in the next week. So at the skeleton phase, we're developing a physical structure for each view, whether that view be a physical page, a screen, something on a video, etc. Alright, here again we're referring back to the organization of the information, the relationship, and how the pieces fit together and behaved. So we're going to be developing a physical structure based on what we have looked at in the other 3 planes, especially the structure plane. So here again, it relates back to the organization, categorization, relationships, and flow schemes that we looked at in the structure plane. Alright, so these two are very directly tied into each other. What is actually the difference? In the structure, we're looking at more of the larger picture, the architecture and the interaction, the organization, how we categorize the relationship between the pieces. At the skeleton, now we're getting to more of a refined level of detail. We're looking at the smaller picture. How do the small pieces look? This is where we start looking at the design of the interface, the design for the information, and where we actually start sketching out some kind of a layout. So our goal is to select the right elements for the task and arranging them so that they are understood and easy to use by whom? By the user. We also need to decide on what does not need to be there. We may need to make it available if needed. So this is where we start looking at how we will present the information so that people, our users, can use it and understand it. So now we will be arranging, laying out the information. We will be arranging and grouping the content, which essentially is representing the data somehow, and we'll be looking at associating icons that we might use, which all supports how the users think and also supports the tasks and the goals that they might have with respect to using our product. One of the most common and popular ways that we do this is by using what is called a wireframe. There are actual programs that you can use to make nice, precise wireframes, or you can actually just use pencil and paper and sketch it out. A wireprint is like a blueprint. It is some kind of a page schematic of the components that will be on the page. Here again, the page can be on the web, it can be a video slide, it can be a multimedia document. So it's a schematic of the components and how they fit together. Okay, so what are we going to be using? We're going to be looking at where are the different sections of content. Where are the images going to be? Where might other media going to be? Where is navigation if that's involved? Where will that be? If we have form elements, what will those elements be? Any types of calling to action, clicking. So here again, wireframe is an illustration of the structuring. All right. Essentially, you're looking at placeholders, diagrams that will represent where the content's going to be. You can also add what are called annotations, which are essentially little notes or comments about some of the pieces. Supplemental notes. And here again, a wireframe can serve as a unique part of your product or as a template for other pages that might be part of your product also. Here again, this concept of annotation, okay, identifying things with a label. You might want to put some additional information, sources, where the content is, etc. Or you might have some kind of interactivity going on there that you might want to let people know about. So there's a lot of nice reasons why you might want to annotate different sections on your wireframe. Alright, so who benefits from the wireframe? Everyone. The project manager who's paying for the job, it gives him something that he can put in his hand to make sure that you're going in the right direction. The visual designers, the graphic designers who need to know what do you want. The programmers who are going to be writing the code. The content creators who might be developing the content. They need to have a general idea of where the content's going to be and how much. Search engines. Okay, here again, the stakeholders. You can use a wireframe for user testing and also for your client. Here again, it's always a good idea to have the client involved at all points of the product and making sure that you're all in agreement, or else you're going to be developing something and then you're going to have to go back and redo it. Alright, you might hear the term a mock-up. A mock-up is similar to a wireframe, it's just a little bit more detailed. Alright, so you're getting a little bit more visual with some images, color, typography, some other things. Now a mock-up would come next. Right, before we actually start writing the real code, we write a mock-up, which would be with real code, so that here again, all the significant people who are involved make sure that we're all on the same agreement with the product that we're developing. Another term is a prototype. Here again, a prototype is semi-functional, all right, where you start adding real content and you actually start coding things. The actual interactivity, such as the database connectivity, might not be there yet, but you would just simulate it. You might, for example, the login. You might pretend that you forgot the password, but we're going to another page, so we have an idea of what that other page looks like. We haven't really connected to a database yet. We don't have any real users yet. But this is the next step after the wireframe. Alright, so a basic wireframe should be just very simple, black and white, drawn to scale, and here again, if it's a website, it should include navigation. You want to identify where's the logo going to be, where is the navigation going to be, headers, footers, images, content areas, sidebar, a search section, a login section, any kind of widgets. So all the different pieces that might be on a page, you're going to be identifying them via your wireframe. Alright, so you might hear a wireframe described as a low fidelity or high fidelity. Essentially, you're looking at black and white with just shapes and labels, or some people actually go almost to a mock-up where they actually do start putting colors and an actual logo on there and some more visual effects. Alright, so here again, at bare minimum, it's fine to use pencil and paper. There is some online software. There is software to download. You can use your existing design tools. You can use InDesign, you can use Photoshop, Microsoft Word. There's also some templates and design stencils out there that you can search for, and I have a lot of nice resources for you on Blackboard. This is an example of a wireframe. And here again, this is for a website, so just supposing that we are developing this website for this client, and this is the stage that we're at. Although you can see that we do have a lot of text here, so this is more of a high-end, more visual wireframe. But you can notice that there's a big area here where a slideshow is going to be, one of our JavaScript sliders. Here we have some more information, some images and some text here. We have some other sections down here. Like I said, there's a little bit more detail here. There's our Facebook, our LinkedIn. Now, this is not working yet, but here again, there's our banner. We don't know what that's going to be yet. But we just want to make sure that we have the right layout, the basic blueprint, so to speak, before we actually start adding the real content. And here's an example of the finished product at the time that they did this. Another, continuing on with the same rotary site, further down on the page, here again, organization of content. And here's the finished product. Looks a little bit different than the wireframe. There's the wireframe. But you can see the similarities. So we had the general idea of what we wanted and where we wanted it. And one more, here's YouTube. And this is what most developers do. They have a general blueprint. They have an idea of where things are going to go and what's going to go where. They just don't start writing out the code. All right, some URLs that you might want to pursue, and I have these on Blackboards. There are some common design patterns that developers use. And sometimes it's a good idea to see what other people are doing before we actually start thinking about what we want to do, because here again, there's a consistent look and feel and understanding of the way things work in some of these patterns, and it's always a good idea to stick to the norm and what people are used to. The last thing I want to do is to look at an online wireframe tool. And this is free, although there is a paid version. You can watch the demo, you can see an example. Ultimately, you click and you drag. So there's my banner. Now, after I have finished, it gives me some choices here. All right, so I can type something in there. All right, there's a sample there. I can do headlines. I can do a scroll bar. All right, there's a progress bar, some other form elements. There's this. So how about this is going to be a nice little headline here. And here again, you can click on these things. You can resize them. You can move them. All right. Now, supposing I decide that I'm going to have some content here. And that's going to be some content. And maybe now I'm going to have a little image slider there. So that's going to be my image slider. And for some reason, you always see these X's as images. All right, so now I'll have a couple other little things down here. I'll just make a little square here. And I'll just make a little square there. And I'll just make a little square here. All right. So you want to make it a little bit realistic and proportional. All right, now if I save this, it actually gives me a URL, and that URL will be there forever. You can come back to it and you can work on it, you can change it, you can create another one. and it's all for free. And if you wanted to use this tool to create your wireframe in, all you need to do is send me the URL. And that pretty much wraps up our presentation.